Hey Masters, if you know me and you've been listening to my podcast, you know health and nutrition is number one. Check out AdvoCare products. I am a distributor. Go to livelongersmarter.com. We got everything you could imagine for your health and nutrition goals. If you're interested, at the end of the podcast, at the very end, there'll be more information on the products. Also, LandVoice is one of our sponsors. They have amazing services. If you need leads, please check out LandVoice for FSBO, expired, circle prospecting, a dialer, whatever you need. Go to davidihill.com. Affiliates, you can click the LandVoice link and all of the special opportunities will be there.
Get ready for one more sale. Inspiring you with ideas through powerful and engaging interviews with top performers of their field. Now, join us as we discuss techniques and strategies of the coolest and most successful people on the planet.
If you're willing to take the rejection, if you're willing to make the calls, if you're willing to work hard, you can make more money than doctors, lawyers, anybody out there who spends hundreds of thousands on their education and they come out with student loans and everything else. If you are willing to do the hard work, to show up early, stay late, and get it done, you can make a bunch of money. Sales is the lowest paying easy work and the highest paying hard work.
Hey Masters, welcome to episode number 61. We are bringing you a blast from the past. We're going back to my good friend and national sales trainer, John Chapin. Guys, this is from, over a year ago. And he just killed it. And the reason I'm going back to this particular episode is because he talks to us about dealing with rejection and overcoming all those frustrations that go with with prospecting, with sales. And it's just a brilliant interview. As a matter of fact, it's the interview that had the most downloads of any interview yet that I have done. So I just thought it was a great interview to bring back because it seems like right now it's some challenging times out there. So that said, I'm excited to share this interview on sales, call reluctance, telephone prospecting. Just a phenomenal interview. Listen, you guys are going to love it. And that said, I just want to thank you as well because we're getting a ton of downloads now. And listen, you guys, I really thank you for the support, for subscribing, for liking, for your reviews, and it's just really helping. I mean, we're really starting to gain some traction, so thank you for that. Hey, please keep us in mind for real estate, Central Massachusetts. Share this every time. Listen, guys, we do a lot of referrals. We get really great feedback, and that's our goal. So that said, keep us in mind for referrals. You rock. Enjoy this interview, and have a phenomenal rest of your day. David Hill here from One More Sale Podcast, and today I am with John Chapin, who is a national trainer. He's been in the business 28 years in sales and sales management. In 2010, John wrote the Sales Book of the Year, the Sales Encyclopedia. John is now a current member of the NSA National Speakers Association and again, national trainer, national speaker, and national coach. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. How are you, David?
I'm doing excellent. And hey, thank you for spending some time with me today and spending some time with us.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, going back 28 years now, 28 years in the business. Let's talk about how did you first get started in sales?
Okay, well, make a long story short, I was a political science major. I did an internship for the town of Auburn, and into about 2 hours into the internship at the town hall, I decided I don't want to be in politics or anything related to government. So the next thing that made sense was my dad was in sales, my grandfather was in sales, my great-grandfather was in sales. So I said, sales. That seems like an obvious one. So that's the long story of how I get into sales.
Awesome. All right, sounds cool. And interestingly enough, it's similar to my story because my mother, growing up, published a magazine, and I was turning wrenches, and it was pretty grimy and dirty hands. And I said, well, these guys are clean, and they get to wear suits to work and all this cool stuff. So I ended up doing that myself. So
glad to know that we kind of have that in common.
Yes.
So let's talk about that first job, though. Well, I mean, for me, my first job, I was actually telemarketing. Young, 17, calling for Kirby, setting up vacuum cleaner sales, appointments for vacuum cleaner salespeople to go out. So where did you start?
Okay, I actually became a stockbroker right out of school, answered an ad in the local newspaper, actually down in Florida. I moved from Massachusetts to Florida, and they had an ad for a stockbroker trainee. So I went in, basically prepared to take the Series 7 test, the securities test, passed that the first time out. Went in, they said, great, now you need a cold call script. Came up with that. They said, okay, you got your license about a week later, and they said, get on the phone and start calling. So it was more of almost like a boiler room, really quick, just get on the phone and call. I was 21, and I looked like I was about 16 or 17. So it was good that I was doing most of my work over the phone because I still had this voice. So I sounded like I was probably in my 40s, but I looked 17. And so, yeah, and then it was just smile and dial, make a lot of phone calls.
Got it. So you started hammering the phone, similar to me.
Yes.
And then from there, where did you end up?
Okay, well, was pretty successful in that. And all of a sudden was having a few health issues. And what they found out was that they looked at everything. They said, my life was pretty stressful. Because you can imagine the stock market going up and down and people's money, they take pretty seriously and things like that. So next thing you know, I had a doctor say to me, you better get out of this business or you're going to die an early death.
Wow.
So I ended up getting into the textile industry, much less stressful, moved back to Massachusetts and worked for a company for 6 years, actually, in the textile industry.
Gotcha.
And did that. That was still mostly phone. But I also did some marketing. I did some local stuff, did some face-to-face calls and things like that.
So a lot of our listeners, John, are on the phones and do work the phone. So let's talk about that because I've interviewed a few people that's kind of their specialty. And my book, honestly, has a lot to do with managing and using the phone. So what would you say, what would you say are some of the things that made you successful? Because obviously you're successful now, you're teaching others. How did you become successful on the phone?
One of the key things I did was, luckily, I was in an office with a bunch of other stockbrokers and some of the top people. In fact, we had the number one guy in the country was in my office. So basically, I listened to him. I followed, we had five, I think overall we had 5 top people. So I went to them and I found out everything they did. I got every answer to every objection. I got their presentation. I got everything. And I basically emulated what they did. I copied what they did. And then I really focused on the numbers. I made sure I showed up before everyone. I left after everyone. They had a TELS report, which actually counted your calls, number of calls. So I made sure every morning when the manager read that off from the night before that when they tallied it from the night before that, I was number one. That I made the most calls. So worked hard, made sure I was saying what the top people were saying and doing. And that's what it really came down to, is the hard work, the activity, saying the right things and that.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So the other part of that too now is I'm sure you must have dealt with a lot of rejection, right?
Sure.
A lot of hearing the word, no, take me off your list, don't call me, things like that.
Right.
How'd you deal with stuff like that?
Well, the funny thing is the first call I ever made, I got hung up on. Now, overall, when I look at my career, I didn't get hung up on a lot. I could probably count it on both the hands and feet.
Really?
The total number of times I actually got hung up on it. Because I had a pretty good presence over the phone. People took me fairly seriously. But that first call I got hung up on, and so I expected that was supposed to happen. And the funny thing is after a while, as you're doing it, you just get used to it. And or you get used to the rejection. Like I said, I didn't get hung up on that much. But most people, again, when they think of cold calling, they think of calling people they don't need. They picture the hang-ups. They picture people yelling at them. They picture most of that doesn't happen. Most of that people say, I'm not interested. They let you go. It's not as bad as you really think it's going to be. But the other thing is you can't take it personally. Yeah. You've got to realize that whether it's you calling, David, or it's me calling, or it's anyone else calling, they're going to have that response reaction. So it's not personal. And the other thing is, I always kept my eye on the prize. Zig Ziglar had said something that stuck in my head. He said he always broke everything down to how much money he made, how many calls he made. So regardless, and then he broke it down and he figured out how much money he made per call. I think he said he figured it was $10 per call. So whether someone hung up on him, whether they didn't answer the phone, whether they bought, whatever it was $10 a call. So he said somebody would say, sorry, not interested, and he'd say, thanks for the $10 and hang up. Okay, but for me, it was like, okay, ultimately get into the goal. Just keeping my eye on the prize, not taking it personally, just doing the hard work.
Yeah, outstanding tips. And I'm honestly, I'm still a little perplexed that you've only been hung up on less than 10 times, because I've been hung up on a lot.
Okay, well, I guess we need to talk about that offline.
Yeah. So maybe I need to buy into some of your coaching, because I'm getting hung up on quite a bit.
We can talk about that later. I have special programs.
I appreciate that. And the good thing about it, though, is like you said, I don't take it personal, and I have fun and I smile and I just keep moving forward. So I'm looking for the person that is interested in us helping them. So great advice. And you did talk about numbers as well, because numbers are important. So, tell us a little bit about, do you know your numbers? Do you keep track of your numbers? I mean, are you on the phones today? Are you still making calls today?
Yeah, currently I need to make 7 phone calls a day to book the number of speeches I need to book to get to where I need to be to. So I know that based upon the averages, now obviously that isn't a big number, but let me give you another number. The most calls I made in one day ever was 237. That's back when I was a stockbroker. So that's really hitting the phones. When I initially got into the speaking business, it was 75 calls a day. Then it went to 50 calls a day. Then it went to 25. I mean, now I'm getting more referrals. I get people calling me and things like that. So the number's pretty small.
So you know your numbers.
I do know my numbers.
And what I'm hearing you, and you tell me if I'm correct, is the fact that your numbers have gone down because you've gotten better.
Yeah, I've gotten better. Also, more people come to me because my name's out there more now. And just because of now there are more quality calls because of referrals, because of things like that. The other thing is, though, interestingly enough, is I will still make cold calls every once in a while just to stay sharp. Because if you can make a cold call and just call people on the phone cold, somebody who doesn't know you, a stranger, that's the most difficult thing in sales to do. And if you can do that one thing, you can do anything else in sales. So I still like to do that every once in a while just to stay sharp and kind of play the game.
I love that. Will. Yeah, absolutely. I can so agree with what you just said. So let's talk about the difference now. I mean, here you are, you're 28 years later. Your first call you said you got hung up on. Now you're at 7 calls. What would you say is the biggest difference?
Okay, I guess when I was younger, everything seemed like so much more of a bigger deal. And rejection and this and that and everything else. When I look now, being older and being 50 now, and looking back on my life.
You only look like you're 60, so you're in good shape.
Oh, thank you. Good. So I'm only minus 10 on the age scale. So, yeah, and luckily this is a podcast and they don't see me in person.
You look great, man.
But anyway, so... No, it's funny when I look at all the things in my life in general, the girls I didn't ask out, the opportunities I didn't take, the things like that. And I realize now that it's all about, what was Babe Ruth, right? He had the most home runs, he had the most strikeouts.
Yeah.
And life really comes down to putting yourself out there as much as you can. So even though I made, 237 phone calls in one day, and that was probably a really high number, I would have strived to fail even more and make more phone calls and get out there even more and face even more rejection. Because the more rejection you face, the more success you're going to get. And I never really made that tie back then. I probably made it about 15, 20 years ago. More that I really started to make that tie to failure, rejection equals success.
So what do you say? And I get what you're saying because I'm in the same boat. I can relate to that being older now, not quite as old as you. I get older. Yeah. But what do you say to the newer guy in their 20s that are picking up the phones now and making these calls?
Yeah, the newer guys that are picking up the phones, again, I make sure they know why they're doing what they're doing. Like what ultimate motivation is, why do you do what you do? What's the drive? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want for your life and everything else? And just realizing that every call gets you closer to where you want to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost back to what Zig Ziglar said with the $10 per call. Thanks for the $10 on the person who wasn't interested. It's almost the same thing where, again, if you can, the more calls you make, get you closer. And if you don't make the calls and you have a day where you don't, it takes you in the other direction. It takes you towards failure.
Yeah.
It takes you towards poverty. I mean, I had to get pretty specific on that visual of where I didn't want to be versus where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Success versus failure. And realizing if I failed to make the calls, then I was getting closer to that. And if I went out and I made the calls, regardless of what happened, regardless of how many people I talked to, regardless of who hung up on me, again, didn't have a lot of those, but regardless of who rejected me, at the end of the day, it was still taking me closer to the promised land and ultimately what I wanted.
You are listening to One More Sale.
We talk about this in my book, the times of social media and email. Everybody's looking for instant gratification and text messaging. It's a lot more challenging these days picking up the phone, and not as many. And the good thing is, not as many people are doing it. Mm-hmm. So what's your advice to somebody that? I mean, the times are different now. Than they were 28 years ago. That's all we had 28 years ago. So it's common practice. Mm-hmm. It's really not as much common practice now.
Right. And that's an advantage for the people willing to make the phone calls, to go out and knock on the doors, because this is still about relationships. Mm-hmm. It will always be about relationships. 100 years from now, it's going to be about relationships. 100 years ago, it was about relationships. Before the phone, right? Before Alexander Graham Bell, right? You had to be out talking to people in person. Yeah. It's a contact sport. Okay, and always will be. The advantage for those of us who are making the calls and knocking on doors is that not as many people are doing it. Okay, the myth is that if you send an email, that's a contact. It isn't. Because with spam filters, with everything else out there, first off, you don't even know that they actually got the email. Second, they're getting so many emails. I don't know about you. I get 300 to 400 emails a day. Delete, 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 delete. So you're not actually accomplishing anything. You're going to use social media, emails, Facebook, LinkedIn, items like that to help build the relationship on the back end and help to stay in touch with people and stay in touch with customers and that. But let's say, for example, you do decide you want to send an email. Great, send an email. You have to make a phone call right after that.
Yeah, I agree.
And so just say, John Chapin, just sent you an email, came from this email address, titled follow-up to email, follow-up to phone call, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you've got to follow it up with a phone call. That will never go away.
No, absolutely.
That contact.
Absolutely. And it's really about the connection, because it seems we've lost, even as a society, the connection in a lot of areas, because it's social media. You don't even... there's so much noise now. Like you said, you're getting 100, I open my inbox at any time and there could be 25 emails.
Right.
And out of the 25, 22 of them I'm going to delete. I have no interest in.
Right.
And then the amount of people, there are still people calling, but right off the bat, I'm going to determine, is this someone I want to talk to, or is this someone that is just trying to waste my time?
Right, exactly. But at least they have your attention in that moment. I got an email the other day from a vice president of a headhunting firm who was promoting a sales manager via email. And I'm thinking, okay, first off, you should get it that you should be calling me, but you're trying to place a VP of sales who shouldn't even need you if he was any good at sales. and you're doing it the wrong way. You're spamming me. People are going to look at email as spam. Yeah. You got to call people. You got to talk to people. You got to contact people. Again, it's a contact sport.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they complement each other, though. I think
they do.
In these times, you really do have to complement the phone with the emails and the social media, and that's what I'm learning. So I'm learning that myself.
Yeah, because people prefer email. Some people prefer email versus phone call. Some people prefer phone, in person, whatever it is. So, they a lot of times, again, so if you call them and say, hey, I just sent you an email, it came from here, here's the title, you can respond that way. A lot of people will respond to me via email. But if I just sent the email without a phone call, it's going to be minuscule. When I follow up an email with a phone call, it's a lot higher. It's probably 10, 15, 20 times the response. Yeah. And it's just a quick phone call.
You're giving the person what they want, right? You're connecting with them the way they want to be connected with.
Exactly.
And another thing we talk about is taking that, what you just said, and letting people know, giving them a call ahead of time and saying, hey, I just want to let you know I'm going to be sending you an email.
Right.
Is that something you guys are implementing as well?
That's primarily what I do.
Gotcha.
I will, call someone, even if I don't have their email address right then and there. I'll say, hey, I'm going to shoot you an email. And of course, we know we can search it, Google it, and look it up. But I always do that. So when I call someone on the phone, if it's a speaking engagement I'm trying to get, and I say, hey, here's why I'm calling, everything else. And I say, I will also shoot you an email. It'll come from this address. I'll title it Follow Up to Phone Call. And if you do want to reach out to me, phone call, leave the phone call like they're writing it down, 508-243, and I leave it twice.
Yeah.
But I usually call, followed up with an email.
So they're expecting your email, and that's going to be the key because, again, you're just not getting lost with the other dozens or hundreds of emails.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit now, and let's talk about your book, The Sales Encyclopedia.
Sure.
So when we think of the Sales Encyclopedia, what do you want our listeners to think of?
Okay, the Sales Encyclopedia is everything from A to Z. It's basically the K through 12, kindergarten through grade 12, plus the bachelor's degree, plus the master's degree, plus the doctorate. It's really everything A to Z. It's the largest sales book on the planet, 678 pages. But the other thing is, too, it was first place in the Axiom Book Awards 2010, which is the largest book awards in the world. They actually had the award ceremony in New York City over 2 days.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So it wasn't, you'll get people who say, oh, Amazon bestseller because they were 5 minutes in a certain category.
Sure.
Okay, because their mom and dad and a bunch of friends bought the book. In 5 minutes, they get to number one. This was the sales book of the year for 2010.
That's awesome.
So it's the real deal.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah. So when someone picks up the book, though, what do you want them to take? What's the essence of the book?
The essence of the book is it's going to give them everything from A to Z. If a brand new salesperson picks up that book and they go through the book and they read it and they study it, it's my objective for them to be able to get on the phone or get out in public and go and talk to people and get their attention and sell their ideas. Whether it's personally, whether it's professionally, whether it's whatever it is, it's basically a full game plan for them to be able to go on.
And I've seen you present, and you have a course based around the book.
Right.
And what would you say is the biggest tip when someone goes to one of your presentations or takes one of your courses? What do you want them to take from it? What do they leave with?
Yeah, basically what I want them to come away with is I want them to first off to understand that they control their destiny. Okay, most of it's going to come down to activity level. What's your activity level? Are you spending time on the right activities? Are you making the cold calls? Are you doing what you need to do? But a couple things too is first, it's the number of people you're talking to. Second, of course, it's talking to those people the right way. But I always tell people, I say, whenever you are talking to anyone, I want you to pretend that your mom, dad, sister, brother, best friend, grandmother, whichever relationship works best for you. Okay, because that will ensure, first, that is somebody's mom, dad, sister, brother, best friend.
Yeah, it's a friendly call.
Right. But second, it will ensure you're focused on them and you're taking care of them, because at the end of the day, it's all about the person you're talking to. Yeah. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you. But people have a sixth sense for that. People know when you care about them versus you're trying to make a sale.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay? So it's talk to a lot of people, focus on them, take care of them, make it conversational, just like a friend or a family member, and then just simply ask the questions you need to ask to figure out how you can or can't help. And if you can't help, hopefully you have some information as an expert as to where they can get some help. But all people want is your best effort. All they're looking for is your expertise and how you can help them.
Agreed. One thing I do when we bring on new agents, at least in the real estate industry, is, especially newer agents that are a little reluctant to pick up the phone, we have them call maybe our friendlier clients. Like we'll have them call our database, the people that, appreciate our team and send us referrals. And, so we like to contact, as you know, I've contacted you in the past. We like to check in with people 3 times a year, see how they're doing. So those calls are going to be a lot warmer than if we just throw them on the phone and start, hey, start calling these for sale by owners or these expired sellers. Which
I started, yeah.
Well, me too. I was trying to set up, like I said, to sell $1,500 vacuum cleaners back in the 80s. That wasn't a very easy feat. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that maybe sales reps are coming into this, into sales and some of the ways that you can help them overcome some of those challenges.
I think the biggest challenge that a sales rep runs into is, again, just that it is, you brought up pretty much in the beginning, is that rejection. There's the sales reps who don't make it generally are the ones who are, staying in their comfort zone. They're scared. They won't get on the phone. Generally, failure in sales is a failure of activity. Rarely do I have someone who's the hardest worker, who's making all the calls, who's showing up early, leaving late. Rarely is that person going to fail. It's usually the person who, again, is making the least amount of calls, is coming up with reasons, excuses not to make the calls.
So I'm going to ask you that question again.
Okay.
So what is the biggest challenge for new sales reps coming into the industry, or into any industry for that matter?
I think the biggest challenge is getting past that rejection, getting over that discomfort, facing the fears, and going out and doing what needs to be done.
What are some of the misconceptions, John, because I know a lot of people want to go in sales because they say there's a lot of flexibility and I can make my own schedule. At the same time, that's the double-edged sword, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest misconception is that it's easy. The biggest misconception is that, show up 9 to 5. Let's set my own schedule, do this, do that, do everything else. It's going to be, my friend who, I was a lot smarter than in high school, and he's out and he's making 6 figures in sales as a realtor. And if he can do it, I can do it. So that is the biggest misconception. And sales is, and you've of course heard the saying that sales is the lowest paying easy work and the highest paying hard work. Okay, so sales is not a 9 to 5 job. And I tell people right off the bat, I don't go out and necessarily recommend people get into sales right off the bat. It's hard work. However, if you're willing to take the rejection, if you're willing to make the calls, if you're willing to work hard, you can make more money than doctors, lawyers, anybody out there who spends years in school, hundreds of thousands on their education, and they come out with the student loans and everything else. You can start like you did at 16, 17 years old. If you are willing to do the hard work, to show up early, stay late, and get it done, you can make a bunch of money. So the payoff's there, but it's not easy.
So lowest paying easy job and highest paying hard job. Yes. I had not heard that before.
Okay.
So
good.
Thanks for sharing that with me. So that said, there are a lot of people that go into sales and they have an expectation that I'm going to make a bundle of money and everything's going to be easy. I'm going to make my own schedule. And then 3 weeks into it or a month into it, they get hit with a realization that, wow, that was a lot more than I had anticipated. When that happens, how do they keep going forward?
They've got to find, it's helpful. Like for me, I was in a really good peer group. So I was in an office where I had a lot of highly successful people. So when I started to get down, I had them pushing me. Get on the phone, stay on the phone. Hey, here's what you can do. These guys pulling in Ferraris and Porsches and everything else into the parking lot. And I was like, ooh, okay, that's a motivator. So in the beginning, it's easy, it's new. You're thinking, oh, I'll get, but then again, as you're into it for a while and you're getting beat up and you're starting to get the realization, that's when you've got to really start to get clear as to why you're there. Yeah. What do you want for your life? What are you willing to put in to make sure that you have the life you want? What is the price that you're willing to pay to ensure? And when I say price to pay, I'm not talking about the negative stuff like you don't have time with your kids, your family, whatever, because the most successful people do. You do, I do. It's more am I willing to put myself out there? Am I willing to face the potential rejection? Am I willing to make the calls no matter what? Am I willing to? I had a friend of mine who got in a car accident, totaled his car, and he's like, I still got to make calls. And so he jumps in a cab and makes calls. That's not easy. The easy thing to do would be, take the rest of the day off. It's making those tough decisions. It's stepping up. It's working harder than anyone else. And anyone you look at who's successful, whether it's Oprah Winfrey or it's Bill Gates or it's Peyton Manning or in this area Tom Brady or whatever it is, they're just willing to do the hard work. They've said, okay, what's the price I have to pay? It's the hard work. And then they put in the sweat equity to make it happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's extremely important. Anytime we're looking to hire talent, we're looking at work ethic as well as coachability.
Oh, absolutely.
As well. So in closing, you talked about mentorship earlier, which is huge. We didn't spend a lot of time on that, and I want to do this again. So I'd love to get back with you again and do another interview. Who would you say are your mentors, and also what books would you recommend? Okay.
My dad, I'd have to say, is my mentor because my dad was the number one sales rep for IBM and Diebold Banking Equipment for over 30 years. And he was number one because people knew my dad cared about them and was focused on them. So he sold the right way, made a decent amount of money, made a really good living, took care of the family, and did it the right way. And as a result, had a lot of friends and a lot of customers that really liked him. So him I look up to. I also look up to anyone who's really out there. Think of somebody off the top of my head, Michael Phelps, who before his Olympics early on, 8 hours a day in the pool, commitment, runs into recently, we know, some alcohol issues and some other things, overcomes that. And now, here he is. So resilience, here he is working harder than ever. And he said, maybe I'll go for another Olympics. So really anyone who's at the top of their game, again, an Oprah Winfrey, a Bill Gates, a Michael Phelps, a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, somebody like that, even somebody like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, someone, again, who is at the top, Stallone, who's faced adversity, who's been able to overcome that, have the stick-to-itiveness, who didn't have the easy road, and persisted and fought and fought and fought. Those are the people I really look up to.
That's awesome. And what about a book? What's the book you would recommend to our listeners?
Well, there's this one great book I know, Sales Encyclopedia.
Got it.
No, I'm kidding.
Beyond your book, which one?
I know. No, it's funny. Look, the classics are still some of the best. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
It's a big one.
That is a big one for connecting with people. Yep. Think and Grow Rich, right? Yep. Look, very few new things have been invented. What I see a lot of times these days is people are looking for the magic bullets and the shortcuts. Look, the tried and true method is out there. It's hard work, good attitude, showing up every day and getting it done. There's no shortcut to the hard work. There's no shortcut to, if you want to stay in shape, no one's going to get on the treadmill for you. You're going to have to do it. No one's going to eat right for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. It's the same with sales. It's the same with business. It's the same with anything in life. You've got to go through that yourself so you can own it yourself. Again, follow the path. The path is out there. A lot of people have taken the path. You know the path. It's hard work. It's attitude. It's go out there. It's not overnight. It's going to take a while.
Love it.
Go out there and get it done.
Love it. So what you're talking about is the fundamentals, and
absolutely
love the fundamentals. And Jim, I think it was Jim Rohn that said they don't create new fundamentals, or they don't make new fundamentals, or maybe it was
There's nothing new under the sun. It's just maybe is what you're thinking.
I forget the whole
thing. But everybody kind of puts their own.
It had something to do with there are no new fundamentals, or if you find someone that's manufacturing antiques, run.
So, no, that's perfect. If somebody comes to you and they're trying to sell get-rich-quick schemes, or their success overnight, success isn't overnight.
Yeah.
You got to take a long-term view. The successful people take a long-term view versus a short-term view. Absolutely. So if you see something for nothing, run the other way.
Awesome. And one last thing, what's the last thing you want people to take from this interview?
The one thing I want them to take is, again, I didn't give you my background and growing up and my speech impediment and all the other things that happened, okay? But the most important thing is to believe in yourself and realize that as long as you show up every day and don't quit, you can achieve anything you want to achieve. It's just going to come down to your personal determination to go out there and get it done.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. And I look forward to doing it again really, really soon.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Masters, you guys know how important health and nutrition is to me. I just want to talk to you a little bit about products I use called AdvoCare. I've been using these products for about a year and a half now, mostly just for energy. They've got a really awesome drink. It's called Spark. If you want to check out anything, I would tell you, go check out the energy drink Spark. That's what I did for, like I said, almost a year and a half without even trying any of their other products. And then this past January, a bunch of us, January 4th, decided we were going to do the 24-day challenge, which is a 10-day cleanse and then 14 days of just really healthy eating, vitamins, meal replacement, just awesome 24 days just to kind of get yourself on track and get into some right habits. So Richie Ryan did it with us. Guys, he lost, today's February 5th. I think he's at 24 pounds lost since January 4th. Melissa at our office lost 6 pounds. Min at our office lost 5 pounds. Guys, I mean, listen, it's amazing. Regardless, if your goal is losing weight, my goal wasn't losing weight. I did the challenge just so I could experience it. And, I lost a few pounds, but now I put some weight back on because I started using some of the supplements and the protein powder and all the other stuff. So now I've gained about 3 pounds of muscle and just feel awesome. My energy's through the roof. So whether you're looking for energy or you're looking for just wellness, I mean, they've got some amazing green products that I love taking before I go to bed. Or if you're looking for performance, athletic products, we've got the athletic performance products. And then just active, if you're an active adult, maybe getting a little older in the age and you want to just keep everything working the right way and functioning. Listen, Gary Keller said it best. If you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? And I just love that. So, hey, I just ask you to check out AdvoCare's products. I'm a distributor, so I'd love to help you, talk to you about your nutrition and health goals. You go to livelongersmarter.com, livelongersmarter.com.
You are listening to One More Sale with your host, David I. Hill, author of the Sales Playbook. Get your copy at www.thesalesplaybook.net.